This is Long Way to the Top, and I'm your host, Shane Bryan. In the words of the immortal AC/DC, it is harder than it looks. These interviews will give you a glimpse into the lives of the artists that we've sung along with, danced and rocked out to. Some go deep into their past and others celebrate their recent releases. But all of them show that regardless of who you are, it's always a long way to the top. Welcome to Long Way to the Top. In March last year, I had the chance to chat with the legendary Leo Sayer on the Bad Boys podcast about his new album, Northern Songs. This was one of the most unexpected and one of the funniest interviews in my career so far. I always knew Leo was a bit of a joker, but he literally had my co-host Andrew and I in stitches, especially when we brought up his likeness to fitness guru Richard Symons. I hope you enjoy this Long Way to the Top interview as much as I did. His songs have been used to launch so many careers, including his own, Three Dog Night, Roger Daltrey, and one of the biggest tracks of Cliff Richard's career, Dreamin', a pop icon, a disco superstar, a Muppet Show guest star, and a one-time hall porter who rescued some elderly folks from a blazing hotel fire. I think he was actually rescued himself with a string of hits, including You Make Me Feel Like Dancing, Thunder in My Heart, and now a new album where he reimagines the Beatles. We're, of course, talking about the one and only Leo Sayer.
Nice to be here. Fantastic.
I got to say, it's so good to have you here. And I'm just going to retire now. I'm just going to put my feet up and go, look, you know, I've met Leo Sayer. I can now retire and die a happy man.
Oh, that's very sweet. Thank you very much. But
no, I'm a little disappointed because you're wearing like just this maroon jumper. I was expecting you to be wearing like this multicolored jumpsuit that we all remember.
Get it. I mean, you know, I can go and get Well, look, the jumpsuit is a bit of a, you know, that's a bit of a bugbear because I get mixed up with Richard Symons.
We were going to ask about that.
And you know, they still do that. I mean, if I go to LA now and I was go to Kmart or somewhere like that, I'll be chased around by these little ladies going, Richard Symons, Richard Symons.
Oh, fabulous.
So,
I used to watch your video.
It does happen. And the funny thing is that once we did a photo shoot together, me and Richard Symons, in the middle of 1976, I think it was, in the middle of the 70s, and he was the most miserable bugger to work with, really? I can tell you, because he was saying, why am I here with Leo Sayer? I mean, who is he? He's not important. You know, so he was doing this all the time, and it was just a pain in this. I just said, Richard, for fuck's sake, behave. And it was just, it was embarrassing. People magazine's a front cover.
Yeah.
And afterwards, you know, they were saying, well, you know, you've just been photographed with Leo Sayer. That's pretty big. He said, who's he? He was a very difficult piece of work. I don't think he was happy in his own skin. I think that's basically what I brought home. To be like him with him was a bit of a drag.
Fair enough. I mean, obviously, you are a pop icon well before pop was even the modern thing that it is today, you know, and I mean that with all the respect as well. I wouldn't equate you to modern pop. Like I wouldn't. I mean, you just had this thing going on.
You had your own style, really.
Right. Captivated people.
I always tried to be original. And you know, like when we first started off, I'm looking around at a picture now, I'm going to try and drag it off. No, I can't drag it off. But I used to appear as the Piero. That was my first image, you know, and white face. And white suit and a black skull cap, you know, bathing cap, actually to do it. And white face, white makeup, red spots here, little tear eyes, black things.
I remember that.
So I came out as the Piero, and that was the first real hit, The Show Must Go On, went with that. It was part of the cover of, the image was part of the cover of the album, Silverbird, the first album in 1973. And somebody said, you know, you should appear on stage like that. So we got the girl who did the makeup for the record cover. And the next thing I knew, we were supporting Roxy Music and doing this big tour. And all of a sudden, you know, as soon as I started appearing like that, the audience went mad. They wouldn't let Roxy on stage, you know, and my record suddenly went whoa, straight up the charts, and theirs was coming down. So they threw me off the tour, and I thought, well, hang on, notoriety is good, isn't it? You know, and that's where it kind of started. Went to America, still appearing as a Piero, and because there was only the front cover of the record out, the album Silverbird, and there were few other publicity photographs. Nobody knew what I looked like, so I could go and do the shows dressed as a Pierrot. I would bounce into the room after the band had started, and went, oh God, look, what is that? And then and I'd usually change at the hotel and walk down the street in full makeup, and full mask, and then come off stage afterwards, quickly get into the limousine, go around the block, rub the makeup off, get in some jeans and everything, and stand outside the front door as they're all coming out, and going, who was that guy? And I'm going, yeah, he's fantastic. What did you think? So I didn't have to listen to these bloody promoters or record company guys. I could get it firsthand. It was fantastic. I had this double life, it was incredible. That's awesome. But of course we couldn't keep it going for long because I'd have got straitjacketed into it, like Gilbert Sullivan basically stayed too long, didn't he, with the little cloth cap and the the little boy image. And I thought, well, it's time to move on. So
I think that's why David Bowie kept changing his whole image all the time. He just gets sick of it and go, that's it. Ziggy Stardust is dead.
But that's how pop icons are formed. It's all image, and like David with Ziggy, I suppose me with the Pierrot, Mark Bolan with his kind of like, over, Gary Glitter, you think of, we don't mention him much, but, those kind of people, they got known by their costume, by their look. Yeah. Even Peter Gabriel, with Genesis and to a certain extent, I suppose the early Rolling Stones, with Mick with his crazy American jumpsuits and things, so we see an image and it stays with us and we associate that with the record. It's iconic, isn't it? And that's what we see. And those days in pop, of course, we didn't have MTV, we didn't have video. We'd have to describe ourselves by our image.
Yeah, and where did the whole idea of the falsetto voice come from as well? Because
I always sang high.
That was part of your thing.
Yeah, but it wasn't a concept. I said, I was always singing like that. I always had a high voice, and when I was a young lad, I was a choir boy, and you would instantly kind of you do, for the wings of a dove, it's always been part of my voice.
I think Andrew was a choir boy as well, actually.
Yeah, let's not get into that, whatever we do. But a lot of really big names have sung at that higher pitch.
Like the Bee Gees, for example.
Even
the Bee Gees, of course. And you've got Daryl Hall, who's got a fantastic falsetto. And there were lots of us. I mean, Michael Jackson always had that in his voice as well. But good singers can sing falsetto. It's just a little bit of a tonal shift in the throat, and basically you're there. Yeah. Lucky I had a strong voice, and I've always been able to go. And I've still got the falsetto. So it's still there.
Awesome. And look, something else that's still there, and talking about icons, talking about image and all that sort of stuff, the hair. I mean, wow. I've got to say, that is not only impressive, but it's obviously natural as well.
Yeah, it's not too thin as well. It's thinning a little
great.
bit.
I mean,
no, we've got hair envy actually happening right now, so,
Absolutely.
I'm 74 in May, and I can't believe I've still got it. But
have you ever thought of shaving it? Have you ever thought of getting rid of it?
Well, I did at one time have it in a ponytail. I had it relaxed, and I had a ponytail, and that was somewhere in the kind of 83 or 84 or something like that. And it was fun, but after sweating through a concert, it would all bounce back anyway, because it's pretty wiry stuff.
Because I'm thinking, I reckon, Shane, you hear about people shaving their head for cancer and all that stuff, and raising money and stuff. How many tens of millions of dollars could we get?
No. I'd get millions, mate.
That's right.
But no, I'm going to keep. My dad died with a full head of hair around about this age, about 73. Actually, he was. Right. I've outlasted him already by a year.
Yeah.
And he was just had his 73rd birthday when he died, sadly. But he had a full forehead. I mean, he never receded. So I guess it's in the genes, isn't it?
I've never had a full set of hair, full head of hair. It's always been thin, and it's like, nah, that's it. I did have a flat top once when in the 80s.
To tell the viewers, I mean, we look at this, they probably see it as well. You can choose to see it as 3 screens, and there's two very impaired guys here and me, and it's really sad.
So you're very famously located in Australia now. Why Australia? What was the reason to move down under?
I always had an affinity with this place. I mean, when I came here for that first tour in 1975, I'd just been in the States. We'd had a real gangbusters tour, like I was describing with the Piero and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And it really hit hugely. I mean, you mentioned Three Dog Night. They were at #1 with my song "The Show Must Go On" at the time. Yes. But when I came out of America, I don't know, I always had this feeling that everything was kind of restricted. That, it's a bit like that National Lampoon movie where they go and see the Grand Canyon, and then vacation, and it goes like that.
Yeah,
like that. And he's covered every single photo angle. And when I came to Australia, the most amazing thing was it was incredibly wide open in attitude. I like the first question at the airport, so what do you think of Australia then? I haven't even got off the plane, It kind of said everything really. And I just found it was, and you get all that sort of knock the poms kind of thing, I arrived with my manager, Adam Faith, and they had to have a go at him as well as me. So it was quite funny, the whole thing. But I kind of loved the freedom. It was like, being in a naughty boys at school again. I loved Australia for that. It was kind of, to hell with it. Let's all have a laugh. Let's have fun. And I love that attitude. It was very open. And I don't think I'd seen that in America. The reception that we got was very structured in its way, because they're all on their best behavior and wondering how to react to things. Anything new is kind of, they've got to try and find, they've got to make it old very quickly. They've got to get used to it very quickly. But in Australia, the freshness didn't seem to bowl over it. Every tour that I did, and I must have done about 20 tours, even up to 1990, of Australia. So I was here all the time. And every time I was loving it. Paul Dainty was the promoter, and then later Dennis Smith. And everywhere I went in Australia, it was like a new door was opening somewhere, It was very exciting. On the first tour, we had Reg Ansett with Ansett Airlines as the promoter. And at the end of the tour, he said,
wow, that was...
Yeah, and it was smashing bloke, absolutely great bloke. And he said at the end of the tour, he said, Leo, we've done so well on the tour. I've got my own plane. Would you like to pick 6 or 7 places that you'd love to go to, and I'll fly you there? Yeah. So, we went to Broome, we went to Ayers Rock, as it was then, Ulara, and we went to, we went to Alice Springs, and we went to Cairns, and we went to, oh my God, all over, all of these places in Australia. And at that moment, I actually made myself a promise that I was one day going to live here, because I just thought it was the most magical place. So much contrast, great attitude from people. I loved the sense of humor, the cynicism, everything, the sarcasm. It was really cool. Right up my street,
Well, it's kind of like they sent all the fun people from Britain over to Australia, really, on the convict ships. So,
I think so. I mean, look at the success of people like Billy Connolly.
Exactly,
who was just a complete knockout comedian. Rowan Atkinson. John Cleese. We send you all our funniest.
Exactly.
and you embrace them, and that's what I loved. And I'm a funny guy. So, it was very special. I felt very at home instantly, and I still do now. And honestly, I mean, I could live in England, I suppose, but I'd rather be here. And I love it here. And I'm a naturalized citizen now, as my partner Donatella is as well, from 2008. Nice. And that lovely bloke who gets maligned all the time, Kevin Rudd, did all that, and he was super about it as well. And of course, it was Bob Hawke before who wanted to make me a citizen, but I couldn't go in those times. I couldn't come because you had contracts all over the world, and Australia with online and airlines, and it wasn't as close to the world as it is now in the 70s. And now, of course, it's just Novak Djokovic can try and get in every day. I mean, it's so easy.
Exactly.
Right. And now Australia's big enough, we can piss China off as well. So everybody's happy.
I think so. Yeah, it's like it's becoming a power, isn't it?
Right.
Well, yeah, except except it just needs a leader to run it. But anyway, that's another story altogether. Let's not go there.
Don't go there. Yeah. But at this moment, we're all Ukrainian, so it doesn't matter.
That's right. That's right. Now, there's been a lot of bands that have tried to imitate you as well. I still remember that when the Scissor Sisters first came out. It was like, wow, that sounds like Leo Sayer.
That was a real grab, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
And the co-writer of that was Elton John, which really sort of pissed me off because, I mean, Elton knows me, I mean, he would have gone, that sounds like you made me feel like dancing. But no. But I think that what happens often, and, I'm very aware of this with this new record I've got, this Northern Songs of doing the Beatles. And I've had quite a few people knocking me for it. Of course, diehard Beatles fans who think that the records are sacred and you must never do anything, to these songs. They mustn't be touched. But we all hear things. I mean, You Make Me Feel Like Dancing Itself came out of listening to a record by, what was that? Shame, 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 Shirley and Company. And me and the drummer. There's an old single from ain't that a shame, 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 shame on you, because you can dance too. And some really high-pitched kind of falsetto singer. And me and Jeff Porcaro, the drummer, famous drummer of Toto, of course, and Steely Dan and many others, we were doing a session that day in the studio and we kept looking at each other and because we both heard it on the radio on the way in. And we saying, is that record great? So we started playing the groove and started jamming. And I was singing in the falsetto just like Shirley did on the record. And the next thing we know, it's there. It's there. It became a jam session. Richard Perry recorded it. We didn't even know he was recording it. About 2 days later, he played it to me. He said, that's your hit. Just finish that. Get a chorus on that, and you got a hit. And that's so we all listen to things accidentally, and we all think of George Harrison with My Sweet Lord, and the Chiffons, You can't help sometimes but echo these things.
Well, I mean, he ripped it off the Hare Krishnas, so I mean, exactly.
So we pick up things, and I think it happens in the world of film and TV and actors and playwrights and everything. We all unconsciously borrow something from something else that we've seen. In fact, all we can be influenced is by everything we've listened to. And that was really behind my decision this year of for my 50th anniversary of why don't I do the Beatles? I mean, I'd been working up some of these tracks before anyway, but why not celebrate what influences you and
love it,
and your own take on it as well, because I try to turn it into a Leo record, for all of the craziness that is, but
well, you did, but the Beatles is if you look at any band in the world that's ever been around, really the Beatles songs, the Beatles catalog would have to be the widest catalog that's ever been reproduced by other artists ever.
Yep.
Okay, so
absolutely,
you're not doing something that is sacrilegious. You're doing something that,
and I think if you look at the Beatles, the width of their creativity was the greatest of all. Because I mean, if you figure that the Stones couldn't get a hit until the Beatles wrote the song, and although I love the Stones, the Beatles encompass so many different styles.
Yes. And in such a short time as well, really.
Incredible, yeah. I mean, you look at Paul McCartney's solo career where it's gone into classical, poetry, the dynamism of these guys. I mean, had John stayed alive, I think, and George stayed alive, we'd have seen, really sort of much further creative, width of what they would have been able to do. They're all incredibly, as you see in the film Get Back, how creative they were and how ingenious they were,
Amazing. Now, you did a version of Eleanor Rigby, right?
There's 2 cuts of Eleanor Rigby actually on there, of Michael Jackson did.
We'll talk about that because that's a really interesting one. I mean, Eleanor Rigby, I mean, we're touching on something that's probably one of my favourite songs, and in actual fact, I think Zoot gonna offend every
Yes,
Beatles
right.
fan. Zoot did a better version of it than the Beatles.
Yeah, and what was his name? The singer, who's wonderful, who unfortunately not with us any longer.
Daryl Cotton.
Daryl Cotton. Yeah, what a beautiful singer what a great voice that guy had.
Yeah.
I was just fooling around in the studio. This is about 10 years ago when this came around, and I was trying to learn how to use the studio by myself. I'd already, done some forays into that, but I didn't want to. What would happen if I didn't call the musicians? So I was trying different things, and I don't know how it came to me. I suddenly thought of Quincy Jones and Michael Jackson, and I was, just going do 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 as you do, and they go Eleanor Rigby, and it fit. And I went, oh, you just flatten off the notes a little bit on the vocal, and it fits with that role, that choice of notes and that groove. And the next thing I knew, I was putting it down and thinking, the first thing I thought was, how can I get away with this? And then when I played it to a few other friends, and they said, hey, that's great. So it's cheeky, and I mean, of course, I'm sort of utilizing something that's already out there. Yeah. But I think that's where the fun is. And it started making me think, I mean, the version of Across the Universe I was actually thinking of how Oasis would do that track, and they've always had that Beatles kind of spin on them, haven't they? I mean, they basically,
they think they are the
their
Beatles,
sound. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
they are another Beatles, really. Yeah, exactly. They took that idea and took it further. But I was thinking all the time, how would other artists do it? I mean, how would a kind of like maybe a slightly jazz setup do Norwegian Wood? So, a lot of those songs kind of came up through that, idea of interpretation, but not only me, but how I would imagine. I was trying to sort of put bands together or put artists together and imagine doing that. I was on the track "Girl," I was thinking really of Prince, totally. Would you be my girlfriend? And I was just going, oh, girl, and just thinking, yeah, that's how he'd do it. So, and the whole album is supposed to put a smile on your face. Really, it's supposed to be cheeky. It's like guess the song. And
that's the thing I love about your career. It's almost like you're not taking it all too seriously.
No.
You're trying to be fun. You're trying to enjoy it and enjoy the life that goes along with it as well.
Yeah, and keep reinventing. I mean, look, we have this wonderful platform as artists. I mean, while the pandemic was going on, I was producing some rather serious songs that I was putting on YouTube, of My City in Lockdown, all about Melbourne.
That's right.
Yeah, and then I did a song, How Did We Get Here, which kind of goes right back into the blaming Wu-Tan and the Bats, sort of for everything, rather than kind of working out how humanity has got to the point where a major disease can take us over, only because we didn't listen on AIDS and we didn't listen to people like Fauci. We'd rather diss them than listen to them.
Right. Yeah.
So that's kind of, I felt that I had a job to do, as a spokesperson, with a recording studio. You've got to do something. You can't just sit on the fence, and that was behind that.
And the thing is as well, and thinking about enjoying the career, enjoying the work that you're doing. And before I ask the question that's in my mind is actually about career highlight. What would the career highlight be? The thing, it's funny, we were doing a bit of research before you came on so that we could get our questions a little bit more tightly honed.
Hasn't worked.
No, never does.
The one thing that jumped out at me, the thing that actually impressed me the most.
Of all the things, mind you, of everything that you've ever done, right?
Yeah, of everything.
And this is a reflection of me, probably.
Siri, what's the greatest thing I've ever done?
And the answer is, Andrew?
The Muppet Show. You were on the Muppet Show.
That's not nice.
I think it's amazing. Like, you're up there with George Burns and Elton John and Peter Sellers, John Cleese. Like,
some of the people I've met have been incredible. I mean, I'm doing my book at the minute, and I actually think I go through moments where I think, no, you're just telling tall stories, Leo. But it's true. I was the last person to speak to Elvis on the phone the night before he died. I walked onto a plane that I was tax exile and, living in Los Angeles. And I walked onto a plane at Heathrow. I had to get back to LA, and they said a guy has taken over all of first class. And I said, well, tell him who I am, in a bullish kind of way. Flash bastard. And it was Muhammad Ali. And we became friends. We just sat the whole flight, he's saying, sing me that song again. And I'm going, go to hit me, and show me how, and it was
for the 30th time on the flight.
House on fire. Yeah, exactly. It's like snakes on the plane.
You want to stay up here? You were going to sing that song again.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you're going to have to hit me to do it. No, he was fantastic. And a week later, I went to his training camp, and it's just me and him for 4 days, hung out together,
Wow.
Slept in the same room, all that sort of stuff. In the middle of the night, you're going, tell me about apartheid, and I'll get the whole story. He was my hero when I was a kid at school. Can you imagine these opportunities that come to you? So I've had a wonderful, charmed life, and it's not over yet. No. And I couldn't actually. There are some highlights, but you see, half of the highlights come because of the wonderful, let's use the word, the perk, the perks of that people want to hear you all over the world. I mean, my career's been truly international. So I get invited to Vietnam. Michael Jackson has failed to make the gig somehow. So the promoters say they've got Pepsi and Chivas Regal, his sponsors there. They're all set up in Vietnam. Let's get Leo Sayer. And I go, what? So I'm doing Michael Jackson's gig. I'm the first artist into Vietnam since the war, and incredible. And to us, they all look alike. I mean, I don't mean to say that in a naughty way, but to them, we all look alike, but not me. Yeah. They're all spotting me because there's these massive posters all over Ho Chi Minh City, Saigon, and so people, look, there he is. It's these are the kind of highlights that you couldn't predict. The highlights of having number one records are like one side of it, but the highlights of being in the right place at the right time are just because of being popular and the opportunities, the perks that come with it, And so I think some of my greatest highlights have been moments where I almost shouldn't have been in this place, but I was, and something magical happened. And there's so many of them. You'll have to read the book. It's going to be Just a Boy.
Can't wait to read the book. Yeah.
How do you stay grounded? I mean, because like you come across as one of the friendliest, artists that we've met that just seems to just not take life so seriously. How do you remain grounded? What's your secret?
Oh, I'm a huge egotist. I'm completely, utterly self-centered. Only interested in myself and my own opinions.
That's how you do it.
I am very motivated. I can't work out why at this age, having achieved, yes, as you say, a lot of great things, not good enough for me. I've still got ambition. I still want to play headline at Glastonbury. I still want to, play the Carnegie Hall. Yeah. I still want to, headline the Bar and Blues Fest. They don't even invite me, But I want to do all these things still, and I don't know why. I've got this driving worm inside me that just pushes me. I still want to make my Sergeant Pepper. I still want to have my own I still want to star in a film. Yeah. I still want to do those things. And I don't know what drives me, but it's that keeps me. And in a way that keeps you grounded, because if you're not humble, you'll never get there. So you have to kind of put yourself in perspective. Yes. Well, and I think that I've been able to do that.
You never know. One of these days you might actually be able to be the actor in the movie of Richard Symons' life.
Now that would be the one, wouldn't it? Oh my God, look at these people, it's so beautiful. You bring a tear to my eye. I can do it. I can do gay.
We'll send this tape off for the audition. I mean, you've won it.
I'm in trouble now. Yeah.
So, look, when I was listening to...
I don't know if I can do the exercises, though. I'm not the double jointed.
No, you don't want to do.
Oh, mate.
When I was listening to Eleanor Rigby, knowing how you've got this funny side to you, all I could see was John Lennon and Michael Jackson up in heaven going, "Oh, for fuck's sake, what's Leo done now?"
I know. Look, I got very close to George Harrison towards the last few years because we're both motor racing fanatics, and we'd meet out there. We were, between the two of us, I think we were trying to guide Damon Hill's career because we were great, fans of his dad, Graham Hill, the great Formula One driver of the years of Jackie Stewart and Sterling Moss.
Yes.
We were great. So when this Damon once turned up at my studio as a motorcycle courier, and I had a big poster of Graham Hill, and he's looking at it, and it was on the wall, and he said, "Oh, that's interesting." And I said, "Your eyes look just like his." He said, "Yeah, it's my dad." So it was that's how I first met him. And then George met him through just being, a Graham Hill fan, and there was some do going on. And we both, he was he became a great driver, won the world championship anyway. Yeah. But we kind of guided his career, and we pushed him along, and we persuaded people to give him a gig, when he couldn't get one. Yeah. So I spent a lot of time with George at that time, and I found him to be the most fantastic, down-to-earth, rounded Beatle of them all, because I met them all. And there was something about him, I think, that struck me, with his kind of humility and the way that he looked on himself. He never took himself seriously at all. Yeah. He would run from the idea that the Beatles actually achieved anything. He wanted to achieve so much more as well. It was an interesting guy, and I think a lot of his personality rubbed off on me. And again, we go back to them. I mean, they were so inspiring to everybody because, they had it in check. They had it in control, didn't they? Their egos wouldn't run over. But I think I talked to John just before he died, actually. I was supposed to go to see him at the Dakota building. I was working with Bobby Keys, the sax player, who also worked with the Stones, and was on Double Fantasy, of course. And they were making some new tracks, and Bobby was lined up, and he said, "Come up to the Dakota with me and come up and see John." And I couldn't make it because my wife she was ill and we had to go back to London. And he was, and I caught Bobby in the lobby of the hotel. No mobile phones in those days. So he's on the phone and he come over and he puts John on. And John says, "Yeah, come up and see us," And it was just sad that we couldn't do it. But
it's funny.
They were all really super guys.
We just finished an interview with Rick Nielsen from Cheap Trick. And he was saying that, like the same thing. That
funny man as well.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, very funny man. But it's like that same thing of the Beatles, were such an influence in their life. And obviously,
absolutely.
Their first album was it's a bit too much like the Beatles. And I think if we look at the Beatles' impact like on our lives, your new album really portrays that.
It's such an eclectic mix of tracks, and I'm just saying, well, it's there maybe to prove the width of the Beatles catalogue and to prove that you can put a beat into the Beatles as well. It can work, in that way. We've tried to put a groove into there, if this turns people on to the possibilities of re-listening to those songs and those records and actually kind of taking them seriously, then that's a great thing. I'd be very proud of being part of that, because I think that they symbolize just like mini skirts do and bob cuts and everything. They symbolize a time when it was all an easier world, the 60s, the 70s, a time when, all you need is love. I mean, think of that statement that they made and that they brought to us, the summer of love. And those incredible songs, and that maybe we could all work together and be together. That's in fact, it's kind of. I just saw something very moving this morning. There was a march going on in Poland, I believe. Oh no, in Germany. That's right. And the for Ukraine, support of Ukraine. Yep. And what they were singing was "All You Need Is Love."
Oh, nice.
And I thought, well, man, that's the effect of the Beatles, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's the effect, it's the power of music. I mean, if you look at it from that perspective, Yeah.
It translates to everything. Yeah.
It does. It does. Well, look, you know, your new album, obviously we want everyone to go out and have a listen to it. Maybe it's your stepping stone to your next album, which will be your Sgt. Pepper's. Who knows? Who knows? I've got a load of new songs that. The funny thing is, I'm not writing much anymore, but I'm picking out songs that never got released because I had many fallow years where I just couldn't get a deal, but I kept on making records. Yeah, and I've got them all stacked up. Oh, just over there. No, there are about 400 songs that haven't been released. So you know. So it can go on and go on as long as I can keep healthy and keep going. There's a lot more to come. Leo Sayer, thank you so much.
Pleasure, guys. It's been lovely being with you. Fantastic.
And
may your hair grow. You know, that's all I can say.
Thanks for listening. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Long Way to the Top. Hit plus or follow to subscribe to the podcast and head over to Facebook at the Long Way to the Top podcast and give us a like. Keep on rocking and I'll catch you on the next episode of Long Way to the Top.